Go.
So, Jeff Williams, thanks for joining us for a chat on Keep Cardiff Live.
Absolute pleasure.
For the uninitiated, tell us a little bit about Onslaught.
Okay, Onslaught is a UK-based thrash metal band. The band's been going since around about 1982. First album came out about 84, I believe. I've been in the band for 18 years, I guess. Just about to release the 7th studio album, which obviously, because of the situation of that everybody finds themselves in at the moment, has been quite challenging to actually get it finished, and obviously the promotion and everything with that is. But yeah, you know, we tour a lot, we play a lot, and yeah, so basically an anomaly of being a UK-based thrash metal band.
Yes. So thrash metal, right? So I mean, with metal and with rock music, there's kind of genres and subgenres and all the rest of it. So, what personifies thrash metal?
Thrash metal, it's aggressive. It tends to be fast. The guitar tones are obviously, you know, very aggressive, and the vocals, the lyrical content tends to be either political or religious, or something that's got a little bit more weight to it. It's angry music, but it's a catharsis for anger. You know, in a mosh pit, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, if a mosh pit is going, if somebody gets knocked over, everybody picks them back up, and afterwards
throws them back in.
Throws them back in. But at the end of it, nobody's, you know, beating the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
At the end of the gig, it's a release. Like I said, I think violent music is a catharsis for violence.
I suppose, I mean, I don't know whether there's any analogy whatsoever, but in kind of the field of sport, you know, I'm a Cardiff City supporter, and so is Tony, you know. And you go to an away match, like, and so, you know, people throwing each other around and all the rest of it, and you know, it gets a bit bumpy at times. But then at the end, you know, we score a goal, we're all hugging each other, you know. So it's a togetherness, I suppose, the kind of chaotic togetherness.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's all tribal, basically.
So the lyrics, you said about the kind of lyrics, that's the kind of expectation, is it, from a thrash metal audience, that they would expect those kind of territories to be the main kind of source of lyrical content? Yeah,
it's a lot of it deals with social taboos. You know, plus again, if you take bands like Slayer, you know, a lot of the original lyrics, and certainly the imagery was based around, you know, sort of like satanic sort of, and again, that is to get that sort of what's the word I'm looking for? To get that sort of feedback, that controversy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like it's the musical equivalent of a horror film. You know, where it's meant to give you that different sort of feeling that it's not safe. It's meant to be sort of angry and alternative.
So is that reflected in the kind of within the show, the kind of lighting and the kind of imagery that you use, or, you know, bands in your
certainly. The staging tends to be very dramatic. Lots of pyrotechnics, smoke, flames. The lighting, you know, you tend to use lots of reds, etc., make it look more like a theatrical event rather than a disco.
Yeah.
Which is very important. But the show is very important, and it's got to be high energy.
Is there anybody in the band? It says 37 years this band's been going. I mean, you've been in it half of the time. That's cool. You know, that's a career in its own, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, tell me about it. Look.
Any of the original members still all the way through, still been there, sort of thing?
Yeah, Nige Rocket is the original founding member of the band, and still the main songwriter of the band too. Yeah.
Okay. He's not here to defend himself, sort of thing, but
no.
has his kind of writing style, and has the band kind of evolved and changed, do you think, at that time?
Well, when the band first started, it was more of a punk band.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that, because that's an interesting transition. Was kind of at a time that's what was happening?
Well, this is kind of the thing. I mean, obviously you had the Sex Pistols and all the traditional British punk bands.
Yeah.
And bands like Discharge came along, and then you had Motorhead. And if you kind of put the two things, Motorhead, Discharge, faster punks became thrash. This is sort of what happened in America, with Metallica, Slayer, etc., etc. It was a combination of punk music, extreme metal at the time, which is probably no one got more extreme than Motorhead. If it wasn't for Motorhead, there wouldn't be thrash. And I think the punk attitude, flowed into thrash with a lot of lyrical content and the attitude. And again, a lot of it was during the time then where a lot of rock music was very, you had the hair metal.
Yeah.
And then the glam metal sort of resurgence around that time. And I think thrash was trying to be diametrically opposite to that. So it was like the mirror image, So and I think that was obviously very. So it's meant to be a little more real, if that makes any sense.
So a difficult question for you, because if somebody asked me this, I probably wouldn't remember. But what were you listening to yourself in '82 then?
In '82, in '82, I was listening to classic, just classic '70s rock. Basically, AC/DC, Deep Purple, Whitesnake, Rainbow. All that sort of stuff, and to be honest with you, in the mid to later '80s, I was more into Motley Crue, Kiss, Alice Cooper, that sort of thing, and then kind of got into thrash metal a little later.
Yeah, that's interesting, because some of the bands. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I was also listening to a lot of the bands you just mentioned, and I've always been a big Alice Cooper fan.
Yeah, I love.
Yeah. But Alice moved a lot, didn't he, as well, in his kind of style? I suppose at times a little bit closer to what you do.
In fairness, I don't think Alice ever sat on a style.
No.
Until the late '80s, early '90s, where he released a series of rock albums, Constrictor, Raise Fist and Yell, and then all the heavily sort of slick production sort of rock stuff.
Yeah, I kind of lost Alice.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Jeff. I kind of lost connection with Alice myself as it kind of progressed. I was more. I personally really loved the early band with Dunaway and all that gang.
Classic, awesome. But well, my favorite Alice Cooper album is Dada.
Okay.
I think that is just musically, that's just
which I haven't heard, but I will have to check that out.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful album. It's diverse. It's humorous. The content is great. The musicianship is brilliant. It's the quintessential sort of, for me, Alice Cooper album, because it's quirky, but it's Like I said, I don't think that there's necessarily an Alice Cooper style until he started getting into and more recognised as this sort of soft rock, heavy rock sort of persona that he's been sort of doing for the last 100 years.
Alice Cooper is obviously a phenomenon, but we're here to talk about, Onslaught particularly, but Alice Cooper, I mean, was he in his 70s now? I think he's still kind of out there doing it,
Yes.
Amazing, really.
He's the man's, the man's a legend.
Yeah, he is. And the book, if you read his book, his autobiography is very good, by the way, if you ever get a chance to read it. He talks about golf a bit.
I've seen the super duper Alice Cooper documentary.
Oh, right. I haven't seen that either. I've got to watch it.
I'm
There's two things that are written down.
Yes. Why read a book when you can see the movie? I'm guessing that it'll cover the same sort of topics. And again, also shows that through his career, he was kind of hypocritical to himself. And but interesting, fascinating.
So two things come out of that. One is when musically bands were sort of making that transition from more kind of punk oriented stuff into rock and thrash. I'm wondering how much the audience, how many of them were the same audience who moved with the bands is the first thing. Are you aware? Was that a thing? Did that sort of happen?
What with
bands? When you said like with the band, you kind of, early on being quite punky and then moving more into kind of thrash and metal. Yeah. Were the same people sort of moving with the band and also transitioning with the band into different kind of music?
A lot, a lot of people who went to punk transitioned into rock and metal, for sure.
So the hair started growing and all this, did it?
And the hair started growing, and the hair started going down there instead of up there. And and I think a lot of the punk bands started getting rockier. And I think a lot of, like I said, even a lot of the thrash metal bands at that time, as it went on, if you take Metallica as a perfect sort of vehicle for it, that they got more commercial and more commercial.
Yeah.
Till in the end that there is as far, the new stuff is as far removed from thrash as you can get.
So have they sold out?
But it's good. It's good music for what it is.
Okay.
And I doubt playing in front of hundreds of thousands of people that they're complaining that they're not underground anymore.
Yeah, I can say, because for some people they will appear to have sold out, won't they?
Yeah, but a lot of people still wanted to be the 1982.
Yeah.
And
it isn't though, is it?
No, but it isn't. But this is the thing with any music, is you're always going to get elitists.
Yeah.
And and cool if you're into music that much, or that particular, or your particular genre of music that much, that you're not prepared to tolerate anything else. Cool, excellent. If you love it that much, brilliant. But I don't watch a black and white TV anymore. I've actually got a colour TV because things have moved on.
Yeah.
And with the best of intentions, like I said, things move on, production moves on. People learn to play the guitars better, and that's another thing which obviously happened with bands such as Onslaught and whatever. Is when you start, your kids, you pick up a guitar, you want to make a noise, you want to be in a band, and then you learn to play your instrument.
Yeah.
And when you learn to play your instrument better, it comes across in the songs that you write, in the way that you approach things. And it makes it more enjoyable to play. And, it's all about evolution,
Yeah, I mean, and I say you've been there for sort of 18, nearly 20 years, should we say? So that's which is a hell of a long time. What kind of audiences come, in terms of like age ranges, etc. Does it vary where you're playing?
Well, yes, it does. It does vary where you're playing. But one thing which is very prevalent is the audience is getting younger. I think when I first started playing in the band, because Onslaught took a hiatus of about 15 years, I think.
Wow. Between
In Search of Sanity and then Kill in Peace, I think, was the comeback album. So at that point, there was, there was a lot of nostalgia. There was a lot of the original people that were, sort of into the band, wanted to come and see the band. And I think there was a lot of that. The audience was a little older. Now I think there's been a resurgence in thrash and sort of aggressive music in general. So the audience has come down quite a lot younger, and it depends where you play. If we're in South America, for example, the audience there, you're still looking late teens, early 20s for the majority of the audience. UK 30s, up. So yeah, it depends where you're playing, and it depends again. Countries that have a harder past tend to be more aggressive music. Places like Russia and all Eastern Bloc countries. If you play those, the audience is a lot more sort of extreme, and certainly into more extreme.
So does that sort of translate into how you plan your shows, or is a show always the same?
We try to keep it pretty much the same. But yeah, it does make a difference if you're playing South Central America. You do tend to do a slightly harder show, and if you're playing a more commercial festival, or rock commercial festival, where there's there are more diverse bands playing there rather than an extreme sort of thrash metal festival, then you do not tone things down as such, but you maybe exclude some of the a totally sort of in your face set and try and put some of the mid-paced songs, which are most of the band's fast songs.
Does that also reflect in the kind of the imagery that you use for those gigs? So if you're going for like a full-on event, would the stage appearance be different as well?
No, if anything, with the bigger festivals, it's more. You put on more. You've got the bigger backdrops. You've got more amplifiers. Because it's about making a statement. It is theatre, and it's that one chance to make that first impression. So if you're the second or third band on the day, and you put up the huge backdrop, and you've got 30 Marshall 4x12s and a big drum kit, which we do, and you've got the pyros going off. If nobody's heard of the band, they're still going to stop and watch and wonder why they haven't, because there's a show.
Yeah.
Because it's, because that's the marketing, that's the theatre, the whole thing. It's an entertainment industry. So it's all so to put that, we put as big a show as we can into smaller places.
Yeah.
But the great thing about playing festivals is it gives you free range to put on a full show. So
I'm thinking about the road crew now. We've got all those Marshall stacks going up. You must have a very fit, strong, and keen road crew going around with you.
Well, the good thing with that was the bigger festivals supply their own crew.
Okay.
So it is literally the case you turn up, you've got your own guys, you've got your lighting guy, you've got your lighting tech, you got your drum tech, your blah 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 blah. So you've got your core crew, but luckily there are a lot of stage hands that will do all of that for you. So
because you said, you were kind of being flippant, I think, but you said about 30 Marshall stacks. Maybe not. Maybe you use more. I don't know. But I guess it gets a bit competitive between these bands. Oh, they have 30, man. We could have a couple hundred.
Oh yeah. I'm just trying to think. I think the most that we've had is 20.
Okay, it's enough though, wasn't it?
It was enough. Yeah, it was enough. But
all on 11.
Yeah. But it is, and again, this is the thing. It's if you go back to the Alice Cooper, there was always the rivalry between their drummer and Keith Moon. It's just like, I've got 20 toms. Okay, well, I've got 22 toms, and the next two. So there's always going to be an aspect of of one-upmanship. But again, that's what keeps things interesting.
Talking about your road crew, when you're traveling around, are you traveling around in big trucks? Is it how many are in the team, sort of thing, when Onslaught are on the road?
Again, it depends on what sort of show that you're putting on and what sort of tour that you're doing. The last time we went out, there were three bands altogether, I think.
Okay.
And there was a drum tech, lighting tech. Again, part of the contract is the venues supply local crew. So all the majority of the gear humping is done by the local crew anyway. So what you tend to take are people that do your front of house sound, your lights, your pyrotechnics, and people to look after your gear directly. and most of the manual work, then, if you like, is done by the venue themselves.
So I mean, I'll never be in that position. I never have been in that position, but I can see you've got your bass cases behind you there and whatever. You can just walk on stage, I suppose. Maybe you use a wireless pack. I don't know. And you're kind of good to go. Bang, bang, bang. Thanks very much. We're on.
Yeah, but we've always sound check.
Yeah.
But yeah, you sound check, make sure everything's you can hear yourself and everybody's happy, and done a couple of little bits and pieces, and then that's pretty much it. You plug up and off you go.
And how are your ears? Have you had all these years done any damage to your hearing at all?
Some of my top end has gone, but surprisingly not as bad as I was expecting it to be. So I'm kind of disappointed because I obviously wasn't trying hard enough. And
you're a bass player, so you're okay with the lower end stuff anyway.
Oh, sorry.
You're a bass player, so you can deal with the lower end stuff anyway.
Yeah. This is true. But again, saying that the tone that you get in or the role of a bass player in a thrash metal band is a little different to your traditional bass, as in the frequencies are more low mids rather than low. And there's a lot of percussion on there as well. I play with the plectrum, and a lot of the songs like 220 BPM, on average. So a lot of it's fast, so it has to be a sharp sound to keep focus.
Okay, so it is a little bit more high end than it would be for.
Than it would be for trad, yeah. And it's the cymbals and whatever, the things that can really destroy your ears.
At a wild guess, I might be totally wrong, but I don't know. I imagine maybe you might look up to somebody like Lemmy and what he kind of does. Is he amongst people you would have admired, or are there others?
Lemmy was a genius on many levels. Again, his bass tone is legendary, and again, it's pretty much the benchmark for this style of music. It's distorted, it's focused, but it doesn't. It adds weight, but it doesn't get in the way. And his attitude, and he was just an archetypical.
His book is also great, by the way. You've probably read that one, have you?
I haven't read that one. The last one that I read was the
great read.
That was the Aerosmith one.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is an interesting read.
Yeah, I bet. With the Lemmy thing, the thing I really liked about Lemmy, I'm sure obviously you've met him and you've played with him, haven't you?
I wasn't in the band at the time, but
okay.
But the guys, they did the Orgasmatron tour.
Yeah, because he talks about what comes across with Lemmy and how, in the nicest kind of way, he literally does not care less what anyone else on the planet thinks of him.
Yeah,
he does what he does. That's what he is. Live with it. If you don't like it, ta-da.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's brilliant. It's like I said, he's. I did get to meet him a couple of times, and he's one of those charming, assuming, and non. That's what I'm looking for. He's just most. He emanates rock star. It just flows from him, but at the same time, he's so approachable, and he's not a rock star at the same time. He's very approachable, charming, and again, the word legend is bandied about quite often, but I think that definitely applies to that man.
Who else have you met on your tours who you've been really kind of pleased to meet, and have there been people you thought I've always wanted to meet this person, and there they are?
To be perfectly honest, not that many. The only people that I'm genuinely pleased to meet when we tour is the audience, because they've turned up to watch us.
That's the right answer.
If you go to a festival and the other bands are there, and hanging out with them is great, but they're getting paid to be there,
Yeah.
And some of them are pleasant to spend time with, and some of them aren't.
No.
If people spend their hard-earned money to come to see you, they're the people I'd prefer to be hanging out with.
I mean, I'm kind of interested. You play a lot of major festivals, of course, and you travel all over the world. You know, you say notably as far afield as South America and kind of Eastern Europe and everywhere else, the states and everywhere else.
Yeah.
So when you turn up for a festival, again, I guess it varies, but you know, I suppose you've got to be there a couple of hours before you go on. So what's the kind of expectations from that? You know, do you have your own kind of room, your own kind of vehicle, or and a rider and all the rest of it? How does it work?
Yeah. Well, it's the usual setup is you book at your hotel.
Yeah.
So they've sorted out your hotel. Okay, if you want to take it right from the start, somebody meets you at the airport. You get in the bus. They take you to the hotel, book you into your rooms, give you a couple of hours. You know, if you're playing the same day, a few hours. You know, just to chill out and whatever, get yourself ready. Pick you up, take you to the festival. You normally have your own dressing rooms. It's normally like a hut. That will have your beers in there, your wines, your spirits, and whatever. And just snacks and normally you don't get a sound check because obviously it's a festival. And, then you play. And if you're playing in the afternoon, it tends to be like a 45 minute set. Then there's catering, so you'll go and do your catering, go back to your dressing room, grab a couple of beers, and there's normally communal areas. I normally go out to the front and watch a few bands, and then come back in the evening and you know, a few drinks with the rest of the guys and the rest of the bands and whatever. And,
it sounds very dignified and reasonable, Jeff.
You would be surprised. Yeah, you'd honestly be surprised. It's not as I mean, it can be and it has been, but it doesn't. But it doesn't tend to be that that crazy.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's your career, it's your job, it's what you do, isn't it? So you know.
Well, this is true, and again, it's one of those bizarre things because no one in the band drinks before they go on stage. It's one of the few professions that I know of that you're actively encouraged to be drunk before you do your job.
Yes. And
it's strange because, like I said, you turn up to the dressing room and it's full of Jack Daniels and beer and vodka and sometimes excessive amounts. It's great. And the promoter will come in and so how come you're not drinking? Because we're going to go on stage, play. And a lot of them are confused that you're not actually going on stage completely blitzed. And there aren't many jobs that I'm aware of that they encourage you to do that.
Well, I mean, that's a very professional attitude, admirable attitude, because you could easily not be like that, couldn't you? So well done for that anyway.
Yeah, well, I think you've got to, you've got to put on a show.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is being sharp and being aware of what's happening in the audience and how you interact and how you work that.
I know Tony. I know you know Tony well, of course. That fine-looking chap, just there he is. Look at Tony there. Look, see that smile, the award-winning smile. That is it. But
yes.
But I'm interested in the kind of. I know Tony's interested in the practicalities, kind of the kind of gear you use. But a very Tony, I'm sure we'll chip in a second. But just thinking about when you're traveling, when you're touring.
Yeah.
So yourself, what do you take with you? Do you just take a couple of basses and some effects in a box or something because you've got to travel all around the place?
Yeah. But basically, if it's a festival that you fly into, and it's just literally there and back. I mean, one of the last shows that we did just before this whole lockdown was in Colombia. And that literally was a fly in, do the show, fly back. And so I take one of my basses, which are comparisons. I've got a Tech 21 bass Sans amp, which is a preamp, and a tuner and a wireless system, and that's it.
Yeah.
So keep it very, very simple. less to go wrong. The amplifier that you have on stage, I don't go through the front of house monitors, also the foldback. So my amplifier on stage is my monitor.
Yeah.
And then the signal goes from the sound amp straight in the front of the house through the PA. So I always know that the signal is good because, again, sometimes, more often than not, the backline is great. Sometimes it's not. So by using the preamp, you know that at least for the front of the house, there's going to be, you know, a constant, you know, that the sound's going to be good then because it's, you know.
So this bit of kit is, how big is it, the little preamp? Is it just like a large cigar box size?
Literally
Yeah.
big.
Yeah. It's got a stereo out in it, is it, sort of thing?
No. It's a preamp. So you know, but the nice thing about the Tech 21 is it's got a nice compressed drive to it, so it actually sounds like a valve amp.
All right.
As best you can. So it sounds like a valve amp that you're driving really hot. There's a signal that goes out into the amp, so you get that as well. And then the DI.
Okay.
Which goes to the and which goes to the front desk.
It makes complete sense. I mean, we were talking to people, Luke Bradshaw, guitarist, you know, and he's got like all these amazing amplifiers and whatever. And look in the studio, there's stacks left, right, and center. But he said, but I don't take them on the road with me. You know, like the same as you, just goes out with a minimal kit, and you've got a portable sound then as well, haven't you? Pretty well.
Exactly. It's all contained. I actually got the idea. We played some shows with Napalm Death many years ago, and the bass player, I noticed he had no rig, nothing. So what's the, you know, it's just this is it. You know, no speakers, no anything. I've got this and a monitor. It's just like, okay. So I got myself one of those, and that was it was just like that hallelujah sort of moment, you know.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. I mean, those days, because I know you both used to work in a music store times over the years, and no longer hear cranes. But I don't know if Tony wants to come in on this and Jeff, but I imagine touring bands would sometimes, in days gone by, they've turned up for a venue, the gear's not up to spec, and they pop down the cranes, and you've got to sort them out. Has that happened to you at all?
Yes, it's happened a few times, but more often than not, it was just things like strings and whatever. You know, I did sell the guitars like the Shawadi Wadi wireless system, which is the pinnacle of my career, I think.
Well, there it is. I mean, that is the Golden Globe moment, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about that is his language was filthy, and it was just
really.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Did you know who he was when he came up to you, or?
Yeah, the fact that he was wearing a Shawadi Wadi jacket kind of gave it away.
He's sprinting in off the stage.
Yeah.
Tony Chapman, just over here. I mean, you've worked with this gentleman before now in a music store, Jeff.
Yeah.
I imagine that must have been quite an unpleasant experience for you.
It was always good fun with Jeff. It was always we had some great stories. But I always used to really look forward to when Jeff came back off tour, and then, you know, some exotic places we've been to. There was us. Not knocking Cardiff, because obviously I love Cardiff, but in the rainy Cardiff winter or whatever, and Jeff had just flown back from Brazil or somewhere like that, you know, with some great stories, and always quite envious. I don't know if I could really match up to his stamina with being on the road, but yeah, definitely some of the stories about South America and some of the Eastern European countries. Maybe you can just sort of elaborate a little bit on that, because you've toured lots and lots of countries in the time you've been with Onslaught. So I think it's really fascinating.
Well, yeah, I mean, South America, like I said, it's a very intense sort of place to tour. You know, Brazil, Colombia, all absolutely fantastic. The last South Central America tour that we did was 32 shows in 32 days with 22 flights, as far as I remember.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's great because the audience there is enthusiastic. You know, the food is great. The climate can be a little bit oppressive, but it's always, you know, it's always an amazing place to go to, you know, because it's the attitude there is just so different. You know, it's kind of refreshing.
Any disasters, Jeff?
Any disasters? I got let's think. Well, not as such. I mean, some lousy gigs and some places that we turned up to with the, you know, the facilities were a bit suspect. I got strip searched in Guatemala, I think it was, which was interesting. And there's some stories with that which I can't really tell you. We were the first thrash metal band ever to play in the Lebanon a couple of years ago.
Wow!
So that was really cool in Beirut, and I think we were the first thrash metal band to play in Vietnam.
Yeah,
a couple of years ago, and again, absolutely fantastic. We toured China, did 10 days in China a couple of years ago. Fantastic. I mean, we played America a few times. Well, the interesting thing about America is unless you're a big band, the venues that you play in a lot of these, you know, it's like out of town places. Got to be careful what I say, obviously, because we might be going back. But they're not what you expect. You know, they're just a little bit up from a bar. And some of the bands that play there, in this country, you know, you got some of the bigger bands that are playing 1,500 plus venues here, are playing these little 250 venues that you see the posters. It's just like next week, and you're thinking, Christ, I saw those in St. David's Hall sort of a few years ago. Now they're playing, you know, here. You know, yeehaw, ding, 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 no chicken wine or whatever.
I was wondering if the Blues Brothers situation, yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of, I mean, the long convoluted story, I was kind of expecting the same thing in China. But no, everything was fantastic. A different level altogether. Big lighting rigs, you know, even the smallest cities that we played, the venues were incredible. You know, so, yeah.
How many venues do you think you've played at with Onslaught?
Venues? Oh, good grief. I think I worked out the other day that I've done 36 countries. So it's got to be
1,000?
Oh, it's got to be 3,000-4,000 maybe.
Whoa!
Wow!
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got to be something like that.
Have you got? You must have a couple of these. Have you got a particular venue or a particular location that you really love? You love it when you get a gig there.
I really enjoyed playing the O2 in Bristol.
Okay.
Played there a couple of times now. We headlined there a few years ago, and that was the live DVD that we brought out from the a couple of years ago. Was the majority of it was filmed there, so that was a really good show. And we played there a few years before that with Testament. So that's just like a great venue to play.
Internationally,
I would say it's more the festival stages are the only ones that are really like Bang Your Head in Germany. The stage, yeah, it's great. The stage there is vast, but the crew there and the guy who organises the show is a proper diamond, and it's always a pleasure to play there. So that one's good. Actual venues. Nothing's, to be perfectly honest, nothing's really coming to mind. I think it tends to be because there aren't, even after all the touring that we've done, there aren't that many venues that you tend to go back to, which is a bizarre thing to say. because there are so many. There are literally so many venues.
On that topic, of course, you don't get to play much in Wales, I suppose. Do you?
No. The last we did a gig in Bogies. We did a not Bogies, Fuel.
Yes.
We did a 30th anniversary of the Force tour. So the Force is the second Onslaught album. So what we decided is, because it was the 30th anniversary, we would do a tour of the UK with a lot of dates, which no one does anymore. And we do smaller venues in keeping with the fact that it was an album from 1986, I think. So, so one of those shows was Fuel, and I think.
Do you take any... I don't know whether you need to really, but I know I'm not saying you wouldn't care about it. But what do you kind of think about the venue situation, notably in Cardiff, I suppose, in terms of what's there for bands to play at these days?
I think it's a real sad state of affairs, to be honest, because I don't think, in all truth, I don't think there are any venues in Cardiff that are suitable for live music. Especially rock music. You've got the student union.
Yeah.
The Great Hall is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Great place. No air conditioning. I went to see. I've seen a few bands there, and every time it's been uncomfortable. It's just been so hot and just so oppressive, and a little bit. The sound pressure levels aren't quite right. So it's a place to go to see bands, but I wouldn't say it's a particularly good place to see bands.
Yeah.
Then you've got the CIA, the Motorpoint, and again that's considering that's meant to be our premier sort of large-ish venue. The sound in there is appalling.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't go to gigs anymore. I just don't go there.
No.
The sound's just so bad. It's just not worth it. You can't even see the band anyway.
Well, exactly. And again, especially with rock bands or louder bands in general, it doesn't necessarily have to be a rock band, but it can't handle volume. So it's an awful place. Then you got everywhere is too small. They don't have decent bands in St. David's anymore. God, I used to go see rock bands there there seemed to be one every couple of weeks, at one point.
Yeah.
But again, you could argue the point that there are seats in there, so maybe it's not conducive to a proper rock show because
it wouldn't suit Onslaught, would it really?
Well, no. I mean, the Onslaught played what's the venue in Bristol, the seated Colston Hall.
Oh yeah.
After they just spent tens of thousands having the seats put in there, and the audience ripped them all up. And this is why Onslaught were banned from Colston Hall for life.
Good marketing slogan.
It is, yeah, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, going back to Cardiff, then you got places like Fuel if you're into rock, and
small, isn't it?
Yes, it's a nice venue and etc. But let's be perfectly honest, it's just tiny.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Am I missing anywhere? Oh, there's Club Ivor.
Tram Shed, but it's not. They don't see many kind of metal gigs there particularly.
Well, again, no, but I've seen a few bands.
Phil Campbell's band played there.
Phil Campbell's band. I've seen Arch Enemy there before that. It's devoid of atmosphere. It's a nice venue, but I don't know. And again, it could be me, but it just didn't seem to have, the atmosphere that it should do. Sometimes you get there and there's you get that buzz, and you're waiting for the band to come on, and there's just a buzz in the place where you are.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't any of that at all.
Yeah.
So
It's actually another venue which is currently under a little bit of threat, actually, Tramp Shed. But I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, venues are challenged all the time to sort of break even, and it's difficult to get the perfect venue, I suppose. And from what you said, Cardiff is not kind of overburdened with venues. Certainly not for your band, anyway.
Well, I think it's not necessarily just for my band, but bands of a certain, the bands that used to play St David's. There isn't really anywhere, there isn't a good 2,000 cap, a good solid 2,000 cap anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's desperately missing.
What's the biggest audience you ever played to? Because you played some pretty big festivals, haven't you?
Probably about 25,000, something like that. Yeah. The one that we did in, let's think. Yeah, probably about 25,000. That would have been either Bang Your Head Festival or we did quite a few at Wacken. We did Wacken as well. That was good. So yeah, about that. But again, on most of the festivals, the last few festivals that we did, the one in Colombia, I think there were 15,000 there. We played a castle in Italy with Slayer. That was cool. It was like 10,000 there. That was a few months ago. So yeah, but it varies, It varies.
Any nerves at all when you're playing a bigger gig, or
No, playing bigger gigs are easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, playing gigs. The other problem with playing festivals as a performer, which again I guess a lot of people don't really realise, is because of health and safety concerns nowadays. The barriers are moving further and further away from the stage.
Okay.
That sometimes the audience doesn't start, in a space that would normally be a venue that you would play in.
Wow.
So there's this whole space of nothing, and then the guys, and it's difficult to connect.
Yeah.
Even though there might be 10,000 people past that point, there's such a gap, and again, and you're so high up that personal connection can be.
Yeah, no line of sight at all.
Yeah, and I like to get in people's faces,
I can imagine.
Yeah. So these bigger venues.
Yeah.
And it's great having sort of more space to run around. That's all part of it as well. But
are you using wireless packs at all? Are you able to wander about?
Yeah, wireless packs, Line 6, digital packs at the moment.
Yeah.
They just do the job brilliantly. Yeah.
So do you ever take a run into that space?
I have done, but the problem is what you need to do is spend a bit of time beforehand to make sure there's a way out.
Yeah.
Because I have done that before, where I jumped in there and literally found myself in there for 20 minutes because I couldn't get out.
Yeah, not something you'd want to do again in a hurry.
Always do a recce beforehand.
Yeah,
always do a recce. Always.
Good advice.
Yeah, and there's nothing cool about a 50-year-old man clambering with his ass cracked showing back onto a stage. Nothing cool about that whatsoever.
Unfortunately, of course, at the moment there is just nothing going on. And as a festival band, you're really knocked off kilter, aren't you? So how are you dealing with it?
Well, it's been very unfortunate. I mean, it's the whole situation is unfortunate for everybody to start with.
Yes.
But the whole plan is, like I said, we've got the new album, which is coming out on August the 7th. It's called Generation Antichrist. Now the whole point is we had all the summer festivals booked for this year. We had some great ones booked. We were doing Wacken, Bang Your Head again, Maryland Death Fest, California. So a great deal. So big production. Spent a lot on the production, new backdrops, new everything, all ready to go, and obviously promotion of the new album. So this came along, everything was gone, and obviously financially, as Tony might have mentioned earlier, you know, that this is my job.
Yes, yes.
So the you know, financially, everything's gone. But the album's still coming out, and most of the shows that were booked, festivals that were booked, are happening next year.
Okay.
Now, so we've made up for it that way, and it also means that, you know, we're going to have to be promoting the album in different ways. I mean, the way that we thought about it, there are so many people that are delaying the release of their albums now, that we thought, like, we'll still put it out because people need, you know, something new to listen to. So it's put it out, and then we'll promote it live next year.
2 months ahead, isn't it? 2 months to go till release, but
yeah,
that's still pretty tight, isn't it? God knows where we'd be then, you know.
This is the thing. I mean, who knows? Who knows? And again, we booked for there's a festival in Leeds called Damnation Festival. We were booked for that. I think that's October.
Right.
And as far as I know, that is still going ahead. Okay. So that might possibly happen, but we shall see.
This might be a really crazy question, but I don't know. But you know, the government have introduced sort of compensatory kind of schemes for businesses in comparison to what their ordinary earnings would be.
Yeah,
might be a totally stupid question, but does any of that apply to you in your industry?
Yeah. I applied for that, and I got a minuscule amount.
Yeah. Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah. So
I was gonna say that you know, everyone's sort of in this situation. Obviously, they can't tour, but I mean, I suppose one of the things that people can do to support the bands, obviously, buy the album, which is really important. But I guess another thing is merchandise as well. You know, t-shirts, stuff like that. I mean, that must be a bit of a no-brainer as well. If people can actually support the bands they like by buying some of the merchandise as well.
Well, yeah, of course, but the slight what's the word I'm looking for? The thing with that is the merchandise that we are getting done.
Yeah,
it's all to do with the new album and to do with touring.
Yeah.
You know, so we were that close to putting the dates on the back of the shirts.
Right.
You know, and
right.
so and that would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people like to buy that stuff at the gigs as well, don't
exactly.
they?
No, exactly. So this is the difficult situation that we have. Is a lot of merchandise, as you say, it's a souvenir of the show. So if we release that now, before we go out and tour, and when we tour and take the merchandise out, people have already got it.
So it's a really difficult situation for touring bands like yourself, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly. But plus, you know, I mean, the other thing with that is merchandise is an investment, so you need to have the money normally generated through touring. You get your advance fees, help pay for the merchandising. You know, before you go. So if you've got no advance fees, there's no merchandise. If you pay for merchandise yourself and you don't sell it, because people are waiting for you to tour to buy it, then do you know what I mean? So it's
difficult.
It is a tricky situation. But you know, but I do graphic work as well, so I've managed to get a little bit doing them. So whatever. So.
What kind of stuff? What kind of graphic work is that? Just corporate stuff, whatever comes in.
I have done corporate work in the past. I still work for Comparison Guitars, so I do graphics for those every now and again, t-shirts designs, and I do creative copywriting for those as well. To be perfectly honest, most of the artwork that I've done this time around was for the band. So it was all the artwork, the layout, typography for the new album, backdrop, staging, and all that sort of thing. So.
And the merchandise, I suppose you design some of that.
I design the merchandise too.
It all spins around again, doesn't it? All comes back to the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Exactly. I mean, you know, it is what it is. Like I said, and it's not just us. Everyone's in the same situation. But of course, the other thing to bear in mind is when this is done, it's going to be like people queuing up for a McDonald's. You know, all the bands are suddenly going to want to going to want to get out there and tour. So unless you've secured your place on the festivals from last year, trying to get any tours in or whatever is going to be, it's going to be difficult.
I suppose the other side to that coin is though that, audiences are just absolutely desperate to go and see gigs. They can't wait for live music to come back.
Well, this is true. I agree, but at the same time, there's still only a finite amount of money that they're prepared to put into the gigs, which is why in the UK and Germany's getting the same. Is a lot of UK shows are now festival culture, so people put all their gig money into one festival, so they'll go to Download, for example.
Okay, yeah.
So you'll spend 300 quid on go to Download, see a huge amount of bands, and that's it. And then next year they'll do Download because that's their money. And unless you're Metallica or one of the bigger bands, so touring as a mid-tier thrash metal band in the UK isn't what it used to be, because we've done it before. We played Bloodstock. Played Bloodstock, 20,000 people, fantastic. Everyone's going nuts. Sign-in session afterwards for an hour, constant, great, fantastic. Let's go and do a tour. So it's that's just the way it is. And again, this is where I think there's the difference in attitude when we talk about playing places like South America. There's still that hunger for shows. Yeah. So there isn't quite the same festival mentality in places like that. So people will still go to local gigs, and watch bands.
So,
but I think it's less likely in the UK now, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, literally everything's up in the air. So who knows what's around the corner. But for people who wanted to find out more about Onslaught, I suppose you can just Google Onslaught. But I mean, there must be a pretty kind of significant website that you use. Did you want to maybe direct people towards that and remind them of the name of the album and the release date?
Yeah, well, the album's called Generation Antichrist. It's out on August the 7th. We have a new single out at the moment, which is called Religious Suicide, I believe. And we have another single coming out in a month or so, which I can't, which actually we'll be filming on Monday. It's all green screen and whatever because of social distancing.
Yeah.
You can go to Onslaught Facebook or onslaughtuk.com. We're also on Apple Music and all the other usual sort of outlets on that. You can pre-order the album from AFM Records in Germany, which is our record label. And hopefully see us at Damnation Festival in October, if it happens. If not, then we'll be back next year.
That was a fantastic answer, by the way, because a lot of bands, you ask them something like that, oh, I'm got a clue, So well done. Jeff, really nice to talk to you. Really interesting, and good luck with stuff. And I hope, you're back on the road. Let's hope live music things happening as soon as possible.
Well, I hope it picks up for everybody. It'll be great.
Cheers, Jeff. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Jeff. Speak soon.
No problem at all. Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks a lot. That was great.
Take care. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.